Try.
Try.
Try me.
Try me.
Try me, bitch.
Try me, bitch.
Try me, bitch.
Try me, bitch.
Yepping all the way. Yeah, I've got the whole day. Try.
Try.
Try me, bitch.
Try me, bitch.
Try me, bitch.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of
Try me, bitch.
Almost forgot to press the button. Classic Preeti, always doing weird things. So today on episode 13, I have co-founder of Yeast, Guada, with me on this episode. But before we get into everything that Yeast does and everything y'all need to know, of course, I need to shout out everyone that made this episode possible. So behind the camera, we have Jayden. So Jayden, of course, thank you for this beautiful setup. And then we have our official audio sponsor, Audio-Technica. Thank you for making us sound great. And of course, we have producer Jean, who is going to come in now and do the tea ceremony. Like we're getting married at tea ceremony. So thank you, Jean. She's going to pour us the chai for this episode. And then we can cheers and we will begin. So how are you feeling today, Jean?
Good.
Jean always has the best dresses. So if you're listening to this podcast, you should be watching it instead, okay? Thank you. Okay, Guada, let's cheers.
Yay.
Try me, bitch. Okay. So, in today's episode, I'm actually really excited to finally sit down with you because I've only met Guada via Zoom and we've only talked online. So it's weird because I already know her and she knows me and we know a lot about each other's lives because of what we talked about online. But yeah, finally we're here, we're sitting down and I'm very excited to share with everyone who hasn't heard about Yeast yet. I want everyone to know about it because it's been a very useful platform for so many people. And before we get into what Yeast does, can you introduce yourself to everyone watching?
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much for inviting me. So my name is Guada. I am the co-founder of Yeast. For those who don't know, Yeast is a digital health startup that is focused on making access to sensitive healthcare more convenient, affordable, and discreet. And what we mean by sensitive healthcare, things that might be a bit stigmatized, that might be a bit sensitive, and that people want to sort of deal with in the comfort of their homes. So we touch on sexual, reproductive, and menstrual health.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just a little bit more backstory. So Yeast launched last year in May.
Yes.
So this was while all the crazy was happening in Singapore, circuit breaker, and everyone was pretty much stuck at home. So honestly, it was a really bold move for you guys to launch something, anything at all at a time like that. But I think it was also extremely useful and everyone needed something like this to come up. So I'm glad you guys did. And so you guys launched in May and Guada actually reached out to me in July. I went to check my messages. I found out it's July. And she reached out to me and it was like, I guess you guys were doing a bit of an influencer outreach kind of thing. And just because you guys just started, you wanted to reach out to different influencers, see if anyone related to this, anyone could share their story as well. And if the products that you guys had on your platform was going to be useful to them, then you could see them products and they could share their experience. So that's essentially what happened. And I've shared this a lot on my platform, so I will link a video where it's like a 30-minute video of me talking about all my issues. It's a lot. No, but it was specifically all the everything related to feminine sexual health that was my own personal journey with it and why I started getting on birth control to regulate my own period. So I will link that video for you guys to watch. But that was essentially our first collab. Like when I reached out, I was like, you know what? I think a lot of people would find this very useful. And as I was just briefly sharing it on Insta stories, so many people had so many questions. And I texted Guada, I was like, let me just do a whole video. I'm not going to do this on Insta stories. If people miss it, it's such a waste. So let's do a full video. And that is the video I'll link in my description box. So check it out. And that's the backstory. So I definitely have so many questions because, like I said, our first time properly meeting. So what made you guys start Yeast in May 2020?
Yeah, so I mean, the idea for Yeast actually came up in 2019. We had sort of started like working on the website, working on the operations of it. And we were sort of in the planning stages when we realized that sexual and reproductive health was not considered an essential service during the circuit breaker. And I myself, as a birth control user, was struggling to find a place to get my monthly prescription. I I got rejected from like 3 clinics, and most of my friends were also having issues. So we were like, let's launch with what we have. At that point, it was just like Rio, my co-founder, and I. So yeah, I mean, it's been a journey since, but definitely I feel like we launched at the right time, even though it was a pretty tumultuous time as well.
Yeah, it really was. So yeah, I think before you reached out, I already saw some stuff, like ads you guys were running on Instagram, and I was like, this is kind of cool, but I never really understood because personally I just never used birth control until after I had my teleconsult with you guys, and after I went to a gynecologist, and then I was like, okay, this makes so much sense for me because my periods are just anyhow, so I was like, this makes sense for me to do. So yeah, and I remember telling you, like sharing with you how thank you so much for reaching out, because it was it's the kind of thing where a lot of people are scared of the doctor. Straight up, like a lot of people don't want to go to an actual physical clinic because it's just so much pressure, the wait time puts you off, the amount of money you spend, and it's just the fear of the unknown. You just don't know what the doctor's going to say, so you're just like, it's okay, I'll figure this out, or hopefully my body will figure this out next month. So I think having the ease and the comfort of literally sitting at your home and speaking to a doctor online, for me that was just mind-blowing. Like after my consult, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have not been able to speak to anyone who understands my issues this well, and obviously a professional. And when she shared with me that, like at the end of the day, this is a teleconsult, so I cannot do an ultrasound, I cannot see if there's anything actually like going on internally that I obviously can't see on a video call. So she actually told me to go book an appointment and go down. So it's not something that's like, use our service, don't go. It's like literally your welfare is like the utmost priority here. It's just, how can we help you? How can we make your life easier? Hence ease. Yeah, so that was my experience. And I think even though you guys started at a really insane time, I think that was also when everyone was online and everyone was using Zoom, figuring how to do everyday life things online. So the fact that you made a service like this super important online at a time where we were all figuring out the internet, I think that was perfect. That was great timing. So thank you for going ahead with the launch and not like, letting it like, I guess, hold it back any further.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess another question is, have you always been interested and passionate about these things, or was it something that only when you were much older and you realized that these were like issues?
That's interesting. Yeah, I think I've always been that kind of friend that people come to ask questions, like weird questions that you have that you don't want to maybe share with like your parents or anything. And I've always liked being that kind of person that's able to share sort of resources or hear you out. But that kind of formalized a lot while I was in high school. So I'm originally from Argentina. I've been living in Singapore for 5 years. But during high school, I was very involved with Amnesty International, which is an international NGO that focuses on human rights. And I was doing a lot of work on sexual and reproductive rights. So that started when I was like 15. And then when I came to Singapore, I was sort of president of the G-Spot, which is the Gender and Sexuality Alliance of my university. And in those spaces, I met a lot of people who were also struggling with sort of women's health, female sexuality, just women's rights issues in general. And I was just like super passionate to be able to host these spaces and to hear people out and sort of learn from their experiences and see how we could improve things. So I think it's always been sort of a passion of mine. And I'm really happy that that collided with sort of entrepreneurship, which is another passion of mine. And on how Yeast came about.
So earlier on, you mentioned that like right before Guada got here to the studio, you mentioned that you guys were settling like your stuff in the office, and I was like, oh, okay, wait, because you mentioned the team expanded. So I need to know, how big was the team when you guys started?
Yeah, I mean, it was really just the two of us for about a month. We were also sort of working full-time jobs, so we were just handling this on the side. Later on, when we realized like, oh wow, this is actually taking off, we decided to sort of hire part-timers, and then it became like a full-on team of 9 people. So it's a mix of full-timers and part-timers, but definitely getting more hands on deck is great. It's been really helpful to just be able to have people who are very specialized in different areas like marketing or operations or business development. But yeah, at the beginning it was really just kind of improvised, just the two of us.
That's a lot. So right now you guys have an office space, and is this now your full-time job?
It is.
Nice. That's amazing, because I mean, of course, last year was very tough for everyone. So the fact that you guys really like found a way to like that your business thrive and something so important, not just a business here to profit, you know, something that's so valuable for the community. So I'm so glad you guys are doing well, because like just now when I went to your Instagram to see when you first messaged me, I was like, you guys have like almost 11k followers, and that's, y'all grew so much in like, it hasn't even been a year. Yeah, so congrats on that, and I'm very glad that you guys reached out, because it has just helped me on my own journey a lot.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm there, like, I'm that friend now. You know, like, come to me with your weird questions. So I'm that friend telling everyone else, like, it's so easy, it's so convenient, like, just call. And I've had friends text me, like, I'm so glad like you shout out Yeast, because I got my Plan B pill from them, and like I was freaking out. Like I have friends who text me that on like a Saturday morning, like with a while last night, and I'm just like, I'm glad it was useful, because obviously there's just one example, but there's so many different services you guys actually have. And I guess I would love to get into that. So we have definitely mentioned birth control pills, like how you can get teleconsults, but what else is available on the Yeast platform?
Yeah, so I mean, as you mentioned, we provide sort of birth control pills delivery, birth control teleconsultations. Those are mostly for first-time users who want to learn more about birth control in general, what's good for them, what brands are out there. We also offer sexual health consultations for bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, and UTIs. Menstrual health consultations as well for any kind of menstrual irregularity. People who maybe are missing their periods, people who are having very heavy flow and they're not sure why. I think those are very common questions that a lot of people have, and it might be something that's not normal, but it might also be something that's completely normal. So it's always good to have like an opinion of a professional. And then emergency contraception delivery,
And also STI testing service. Yeah, I think that is the most recent thing you guys launched. And I think that was a long time coming, because you guys talked about it. It was on the website, and it was coming soon. And I know it finally launched, and there's a full like price list, you know, it tells you what you can get tested for, and it's really, really like in depth, you know, like really it's if you're afraid to go get tested, you know what to do, you know? So I think this is really like so useful, and I'm so glad you guys launched that, because that is a major one that I think after you figure out all these first few steps, you know, like as a female, like here I am trying to figure out like my period irregularities, all these things, and eventually when you're sexually active, this is something you need to talk about, like getting tested at least once a year, and definitely not things that we see publicly readily available. It's not information that's out there. So I'm glad it's super accessible now. And another thing that you guys are very big on is the commitment to privacy. So I know that when I first got my Yeast, my birth control pills delivered to my house, it literally looked like I ordered something from Taobao. So it looked like a random Shopee, like it was just grey. It was wrapped in grey plastic, and it only had my name and address. And only after you struggle and unwrap it, then you will realize that, oh, maybe this is something that my parents should come read, you know. But I think for a lot of people who like cannot have that conversation with their parents, family members, it's amazing how discreet it is. So why did you guys make sure that this was something that you guys had to do?
I mean, of course, as much as we want to be open about this, and we talk about it very openly on social media, and we share a lot of education, we also want to respect people's privacy. I mean, I think it's super important in terms of these sensitive healthcare services that are heavily stigmatized. We want to make sure that people feel comfortable accessing them through the platform, right? So we look at every single detail throughout the journey, right? From the packaging, from the way that the pills are hidden behind like the information cards, from like, for instance, the return label is not even the address related to Yeast, so that if your parents Google the address, they can't find it. So we really look at every single detail to make you feel as comfortable as you can.
And another thing, I mean, I love that it's super discreet, because I think I mentioned it in my video as well, like especially for younger consumers, you know, if they really cannot even have that conversation, or even like if nobody knows that they're even sexually active, you know, that is something that's difficult to like a conversation that you're not ready to have with your parents, or they're not ready to have with you yet. So, and of course, it also, I definitely want to highlight that you don't only use birth control pills if you're sexually active. Like for me, I was not even sexually active when I was using it. It was to regulate my periods. I didn't get my period for 7 months, and that's when Yeast saved me. So yeah, you know, it's not just, it's not one size fits all, you know, it's not the same thing for everyone. It's a complete, like, there's so many layers to this. So being discreet and like respecting the privacy, I think, is so important. Yeah, and another thing is that you guys are really sex positive, and you guys provide consults for trans folk as well.
Yeah.
So like, why was that something that you guys wanted to?
Yeah,
have?
totally. I mean, I think since we started Ease, we wanted it to be not just a place where you get like your birth control delivered or like a very functional like sort of platform, but we wanted it to be a space where people could ask questions, where they could get resources, where they could access education and community and support networks and all this much more comprehensive sort of package, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of what we do is sort of like through social media specifically is to promote these kinds of messages that are lacking in the media. They are lacking in even in social media in general as well, right? And for us, it's super important because we want East to be a super inclusive space. I think that's very important because a lot of times we think that these are maybe just women's issues, you know, that, but I mean, trans folks also need birth control maybe, and the benefits that birth control can bring, maybe skipping your periods that could help with sort of issues that they face is super important. And I felt like there was no space that was talking about that in healthcare, right? And making sure that our sort of medical team is also trained to be able to answer those kinds of questions is super important because I don't think they could access it anywhere else.
Yeah, it is like we wrote it down, like Jean wrote this down here, unheard of in Singapore. So yes, really unheard of. Like no one just publicly out there just says, hey, we welcome all, super inclusive, ask us anything, you know? It's never been like that. It's never been this like, I don't think people have been made to feel this comfortable. Which is really important because it's a conversation that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because it's difficult to talk about your own issues, difficult to talk about something like this. So that's amazing, the amazing work you guys are doing, of course. And another thing that I've noticed is that your services, like even the consult and stuff like that, it's always been pretty affordable. Like if you want to compare this to just going to a polyclinic or going to a private clinic, you know, wherever that can help you first, like wherever you can get an appointment at first. This is actually one of the more affordable options. So how do you guys manage to make it an affordable service?
Yeah, I think being online definitely helps. I think, I mean, teleconsultations in general compared to physical consultations are a bit cheaper. I think also the fact that we don't need a physical clinic or anything like that, that definitely helps cut costs. And of course, we are constantly sort of working on our sort of supply chain to make sure that it's as like convenient as affordable as possible so that we can keep costs down. Of course, we're constantly working on that because I mean I want it to be as affordable as it can be, but of course I mean there's barriers in the system that might not allow that, but we're constantly working on that and hopefully even more affordable prices will come soon.
When I received my box, there was the prescription note and everything, and then I couldn't read the handwriting, so I was like, feels like I'm at a normal clinic. Yes, doctor for sure. No, by obviously certified doctors, of course, not because of the handwriting, but legit. So I mean, of course, I think a major thing that it cuts down is the waiting time. Because when you book your teleconsult, you fill up this questionnaire and it's super in depth. So they ask you like if you've ever been on the pill already, like, you know, which brands have you tried? Are you comfortable to stay on it? Do you want to try something else? So because some people get like side effects, of course. And I think it was so in depth that like that's why the teleconsults can be 10 minutes. Yeah, because they already know me. They know my story. They know everything. So it was just and I love how it was really like I could ask her anything in that moment, and it was really just anything that the questionnaire didn't cover, and it really covered so much. So I really barely needed to ask her anything else. So it was really efficient. And of course, like we talked about, like I guess the success and how much you guys have grown in the last like 10 months. So what has the response been like? You know, what have people been saying? What have you heard from the consumers?
I mean, definitely when we launched, we really didn't know what to expect. I mean, it is a stigmatized topic, so openly talking about it on social media was definitely something that could be a challenge, but actually the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. People are just really, I mean, the week we launched, I remember we got, I think, like 30 or 50 messages of people just sharing their stories. And that's when I realized, like, wow, Yeast really has like the potential to be so much more than just this service, right? There are all these sort of gaps in the system that need to be filled, and I'm hoping that we can achieve that through not just our services, but also like the platform in general. But yeah, I mean, definitely, it's been great. I mean, I couldn't be happier with like how openly people are talking about it.
And what other like methods are you guys using? So of course you guys, so you guys are killing the social media game, of course, because I know you do a lot of IG Q&As and you have a lot of Instagram lives. So you guys bring on different people who have like, you know, actual like first-hand experience with the different issues that you want to highlight, and you get them to just share their experience on IG Live and stuff like that. So what else do you guys do on social media? What other methods are you trying, or like what else are you working on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, something I think we started a lot with a lot of like very informational, like text heavy posts. Then we realized like, oh, maybe we want to move into something a lot more engaging. Lately, we've been trying sort of bringing down concepts like the difference between 21 and 28 day pack. That's a question that we get pretty much every day. Or like how discreet are packaging or stuff like that, sort of like to bring the process to the masses in a much more sort of palatable way. And so we've been trying with like TikTok and like IGTVs, which is definitely a very new space for us, but it's definitely fun to try. And the feedback has been really good on those videos. I think the past few videos have gotten quite a lot of views. So definitely we want to continue breaking down those concepts that might be a bit abstract, or questions like typical FAQs that people have that we could sort of explain through like social media in like a more engaging manner. But yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it just before we have like sort of 2 new spaces that we are launching to sort of provide more information about these things. So one is our newsletter that launched just like a week ago or so. And it's called the Monthly Dose.
Makes sense.
Yes. And it's basically, it touches on different sort of news in the space and resources that you can access and sort of what we've been up to in Ease. And then we also have our Facebook community group that has just launched as well, like I think 2 weeks ago, that in that space we sort of also provide information and try to like make these concepts a lot more accessible and also learn from each other and from our own like lived experiences.
Yeah, I think that's cool because it's super like personalized. So it feels like it's really a community that you guys are building. You know, it's not a service. It's not just something people use once and they don't follow up. It feels like you guys want to know, you all want to check up on me, you care, and you want to see how I'm doing. So yeah, I like how it makes people feel, of course, super comfortable and super like, it's just very friendly all around. So yeah, and I know that you guys also changed your packaging recently.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I first used Ease, it was a plain, it was super discreet, it was a white box, but it was a very nice box, you know. So yeah, and I know now it's like there's like, it's cool. Okay, I'll put a link to the Instagram, of course. Go check it out. Like there's green, pink, and everything is really cool now. So, but of course the outside is still very discreet. It's still wrapped up. Looks like some random thing you order online. So don't worry about that. So throughout the last, I guess, almost year, what is the biggest like concern you've heard like Singaporean like consumers like talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we've been putting out like sort of questions like almost every Sunday to the community regarding different topics of access to sexual and reproductive health. And I think 4 key things that appear like pretty much constantly is like a pattern are sort of the stigma surrounding these things. So people sharing like, oh, I got judged by this doctor, or the nurses say something that that made me feel uncomfortable. The second thing I would say is mostly like cost. Actually, cost comes up a lot. I mean, for S.E.A testing, if you go to like a clinic, it can cost up to like $600-$700 for a full test. The third thing would be sort of lack of access in the sense of like inconvenience of like, oh, I have to take 3 hours of work to do this, and it becomes like a very, very complicated process that no one wants to deal with. Yeah, and the last thing would be sort of like lack of spaces to talk about these things and like sort of support networks of like, oh, I don't have friends to talk about it, or my friends are not comfortable talking about these things. I feel shy talking about it with my partner. So those I think are the 4 sort of key pain points that we've been observing. But of course, I mean, it's a pretty big space, so there's a lot more, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But I think, I guess the first one you mentioned, I think that has been an issue for the longest time in Singapore. Stigma when it comes to anything around this. Like even when we talk about sex ed in school. When I did the episode with Karina from Aware, we talked about sex ed And yeah, we talked about how like even till today, like, you know, it's been like 10 years since I was in secondary school, but I don't think the sex education is a lot different, you know, and there's so much people need to know. And like we were mentioning earlier before we started recording, now HPV vaccinations are available in secondary schools, but it's only for females, you know, so that's also like assuming the super heteronormative like life, you know, assuming that men don't need this. Yeah, so there's still a lot that we can talk about and improve on. Of course, there's still a long way to go, but of course you guys are paving the way. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so now I want to talk about the most exciting part, the future of ease. So you mentioned all the really cool stuff that you guys just introduced, like the home testing service, the Facebook group, the EDMs, and I know there's another thing I saw on Instagram. You guys are doing fireside chats. So can you share with us about that?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, we've been thinking a lot about sort of transitioning from the online spaces that we have, the online community and education spaces, into more formal and physical spaces as well. So our first event for the year was our East Fireside Chat. It was basically the fireside chats are meant to be as like a closed door space for people to sort of share experiences, ask questions. It's always moderated by an authority voice. So in this case, we had like sort of the Vika, who is an aware spokesperson, and she has a lot of experience talking about these issues. So basically, she walked us through different sort of discussion-based activities in which we reflected about our own experiences and then were able to share with the group. So it started with sort of a silent activity in which we were putting up, we had like some prompts in the walls and we were putting up posters. It was just really silent, just making sort of posts about different topics that we wanted to discuss within the larger conversation. Later on, we had smaller groups with different prompts and then like a full-on like circle discussion. It was really, it was just a really productive and
it sounds
like,
really conducive and productive.
Yeah, exactly, and a very safe space as well. To just a lot of people share very personal things, so it was great to hear just people opening up and feeling like they could ask things that might be a bit uncomfortable with the crowd, even though they were all strangers.
I think it makes it so it's just I think the space is so safe, and how you guys approach like something so major and like big daunting like topics and issues by literally like prompts on a wall, you know, go there, like tell us like what this makes you feel, tell us about your experience. I think that's so like, you know, you're helping make it way more approachable for people who like, you know, maybe they've never spoken about this before, and that could be their first time, and maybe they're way more comfortable with people who don't know them personally.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to do it, because it's not like a panel and a big like discussion where you don't really feel like you are actually a part of this.
Exactly.
You're just listening. So I think that's cool. And I know you guys are gonna do more of that. So excited to see like all the other topics you guys touch on the fireside chats. And I guess another big question is, what is the dream for Ease?
Yes, I mean, definitely in the short term is sort of continuing to expand our offering. I want to make sure that different services within the sensitive healthcare category are touched on. And then the larger dream, I think, is to become that one-stop platform for all sensitive healthcare, and that one like resource that people turn to every time they need help in anything sensitive within, I mean, health and wellness, right? I definitely do envision like sort of people, you know, taking us as like their main like sort of education resource, but also their main community space when they do want to seek help and seek support. So I mean, that's the larger dream. We'll see how it develops throughout the years.
Honestly, this is just me and how I feel. Like when you say Ease, you want Ease to be a one-stop like platform. It really feels like it to me. Like me and my circle of friends, I feel like you covered the millennials really well. You know, you covered like our generation really well. And we all are talking about Ease. Or someone in a friend group would suggest Ease if like someone had an issue and they didn't know what to do. So I think you guys like really like launched at a great time and marketed everything really well. So everyone, there's definitely gonna be one me in a friend group that's like, have you tried Ease? so influencer things. No, I'm kidding. So this is also another major question. I guess it touches on like the 4 big things you mentioned earlier. So what is the change you hope to see in Singaporean culture surrounding sexual health?
I think one of the things is definitely sort of more open discussions about these things. I know we're sort of kicking that off, and I think it's really amazing to see so many people come to social media to just opening up and just sharing their experiences. But I would love to see people sort of discussing these things in like the dinner table with their friends, with their colleagues. Like, I think when we are more open to discussion and more open to just allowing people to ask you questions and to hear you as well, I think we can destigmatize this topic so much. If we don't talk about them, there's no way to naturalize them, you know. So that's definitely one thing. I think the second thing is sort of a more comprehensive understanding and knowledge of sexual health. I think a lot of times I hear people saying, you know, I don't want to take birth control even though I'm not using it because I'm not sexually active. I still want to take birth control, but I'm shy to ask for it because it's so tied to sex or, you know, to being sexually active. And, you know, some people might need it for health reasons that are not, like, related to intercourse. So I think definitely having, like, a more comprehensive understanding of that is so important. I mean, same with, like, sort of, say, sexual health consults and stuff like that, right? Like, you could have a UTI and not be sexually active, right? So I think pulling those things, like making those things separate and being able to understand that sexual health is just part of a larger part of, like, our health and our wellness that doesn't necessarily tie to being sexually active is so important. To also naturalize these things, you know, and to be comfortable talking about them. So I think those things, and definitely, I mean, that comes through education, right? So we do a lot of discussions on social media about intersectionality, trying to put two things that might not seem related together. And I think we want to continue pushing that because I think that's definitely going to help sort of expand people's understanding of these things and talk about them more naturally. So those two things I think are definitely important. And the last one would be, I think it would be amazing to see, like, sort of less shame, less judgment. I mean, constantly we hear people saying, you know, like, I told my friends that I was getting tested and they thought, like, oh, you know, that you must be so sexually active. No, I mean, you should get tested once a year, even if you're regularly sexually active. It doesn't mean anything, you know.
You could be sexually active once.
Exactly, and you have to get tested anyway. So I think less judgment and more empathy and understanding towards other people and their health and their wellness and their own decisions and would make the space a lot more positive, I think, and would make people feel more comfortable talking about it and seeking help when they need.
I think destigmatizing the conversation is so important because I feel like a lot of people feel like they're very alone. And once you normalize this conversation, once you just talk about it in a friend setting with your colleagues or anyone in just a group, and you realize that, okay, you are not alone. Someone else going through the same thing didn't dare to talk to anyone as well. So I think really, like, it's the stigma that stops so many people from just I mean, obviously it's going to affect your mental health. You know, this is something that's going to lead to, like, so much more if you just cannot even have a conversation. So of course, like, I mean, talk about it with your closest friends. If you're going through something, you don't know what to do, and if you think you need a consult, you don't need anyone else to know about it, of course you know where to go. So I think that's those things you mentioned very, very important. So let's all work towards that. But I'm pretty sure people watching this are working towards that. So tell your friends too, okay? So I guess one final question I have is, what is the one thing you want people to know about Yeast? When they think of Yeast, of course, other than Yeast, what else do you want them to associate with the brand?
I think definitely I would want people to, I think I mentioned it sort of in the conversation, but I would like people to know that I think Yeast has a huge potential to make social change within this area of healthcare. And I think as I mentioned, I think before the call, we saw Yeast as being not just this, like, sort of telemedicine platform to give birth control and that's it. You know, it does really have the potential to change people's views on certain topics that have been stigmatized for years. It has the potential to create community around topics that are a bit sensitive and making people feel comfortable about it. It does have the potential to become a key educational resource for many who don't know where to go. So I think it's the larger picture of Yeast as well, but that's definitely, I hope people see it as that.
That's great. And before we end, I actually thought about this when we were planning the episode and everything, and I don't know if you guys already do this, but I feel like it would be so cool and so important if you did. But do you guys do school outreach programs?
We haven't yet.
I think you should. Like, I think if you guys reached out to secondary schools,
Yeah.
and if people get to hear from you guys, you know, not just like textbook definitions of things, and not just here's how you put on a condom, because that's
Yeah.
not sex ed. That's not it. You
Yeah.
know, that's important, of course, but that's not it. And that was my experience with sex ed. I remember them teaching us about using a condom and how to put it on, and I don't remember anything else. Like, I don't remember, they didn't talk about like women a lot. And yeah, so I think like if you guys did like school outreach programs, like I don't know, whoever's listening, if you can make anything happen, if you guys
Partnerships.
yeah, if you know anyone in schools, you know anyone who will
Yeah.
be keen to have like a conversation like this in the classroom, I think
Yeah.
this is so important. So yeah, that's something. I mean, of course your team is expanding as we speak, you know, of course in the months to come, the years to come, I'm sure like you guys will be massive enough to like run these things, you know, on the side while you're running the show. So yeah, I mean, of course something that you guys can like do in the future, I think
Yeah.
is so useful. Yeah, so, and yeah, you're welcome, secondary school kids. I'm kidding. No, but yeah, I think the work that you guys do is super amazing, and of course like Jean and I are big fans. Like we were talking about it to Guada like off camera just now. Jayden was just sitting there like, this is a lot. No, he's cool. Yeah, no, but we've been huge fans. We love everything that you guys do, and the work is so important. So thank you for launching Ease, and thank you for coming on the podcast and
course,
sharing everything that everyone needs to know, and share with your friends. Okay, if they don't know about Ease yet, let them know. You know, tell them how useful it is and convenient it is. And I hope this was useful. Of course, I'm going to link everything in the description box. Go check out everything at your own time, and whenever you need a consult, whenever you need help, you know where to go. And thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
on this
having
episode.
me. Yeah.
Let me get my trusty soundboard. So thank you so much for being on episode 13 of
Try me, bitch.
and I'll see you guys on the next episode. I don't know what's it about, but we'll find out together. So see you on episode 14. You've just made it to the end of an episode of Chai Me Bitch. Wow, you listened to the whole thing, ah. You like me, then say lah. But if you liked it, make sure you're followed and subscribed so you know every time a new episode of Chai Me Bitch or any other Preetipls video is out. Okay, bye-bye.